Techno ist scheiße, drum machen wir es nicht mehr. Farewell to Riemann's world. Sometime in April of 2022, that is about a year ago, I built a setup of modules I wanted to get more familiar with and called it Not Donald. Among these modules were mutable instruments, marbles and stages. And this was the start of an R&D stream called Riemann's World. Since then, Riemann's World has been going through a lot of different configurations, most of which did something like EDM. After Not Donald, there was Gran Turismo, there was Riemann and Riemann 2 voice, then Manticore, Leopold, and finally Everett. And sometime by the turn of the year, I had been moving around in this world enough that I decided to call it a day. And this day is today. But let's revisit the idea here. What is, or was, Riemann's world really about? At the very beginning, I defined a total of 3 high-level requirements, 2 of them being weak ones. In no specific order, a modular-centric system that is easy to move and set up, and that is not programmable or playable. In other words, a portable, modular, aleatoric entity for making music. During that time, we've been seeing lots of different configurations, and you could say that Leopold somehow ended up being the pinnacle of Riemann's world. Set up in a Mantis case with its own backpack, it contains modules and nothing else. And at least the way I use it, I never play or program a melody or a rhythm or anything else for that matter. And for the portability topic, as you can see, it takes only a few minutes from the moment I start unpacking to the moment I can start playing a potential live venue. Pretty good, eh? You can describe this setup as a 3-stage process. This process encompasses the performer, the modular thingy, and the audience. And, at least in a typical scenario, includes a feedback loop, which is the performer listening to the output and maybe also react to the audience. Within Leopold, each module performs a function in one of those 3 process stages. In the first stage, idea to sequence, the performer's ideas are turned into a somewhat repeating sequence of voltages. And again, it does not mean that the performer somehow defines that sequence, rather the performer influences the random or algorithmic generation of those sequences. Key components here are stages running 2 Turing machines, grids, Pamela's new workout, and Bloom, which mutates and branches from a trivial 1-note sequence. The second stage, sequence to sound, is what in usual synth terms you would call the voices. The number of voices differs between the different builds. To give some examples, for Leopold it's 5, for Everett it's just 1. These voices are always controlled by what comes out of idea to sequence, so again, no direct influence of the performer on what is played. Let's look at the 5 voices of Leopold, numbered 0 to 4. Voice 0 is a sample playback without pitch control, so far only used for bass drum sounds. Voice 1, named Super Coast, is a discrete build and a pretty standard 2 oscillator synth voice at first sight, with some West Coast flair added. Voice 2 is a Döpfer A111-6 with added second envelope and digital oscillator. Voice 3 and 4 finally are voice modules, BIA and Platz, each going through a LPG for taming high frequencies content or some added CV control. The way those 4 voices are built, each one can be used for melodic or percussive applications or for strange noises, and incidentally, I ended up using BIA as a melody module a lot, while Platz did mostly percussion. The third stage, sound to audience, is mostly mixes and effects. I'm sending voices 1 to 4 to 2 A183S stereo mixers, one of them directly feeding a cockpit V2, the other one feeding both Mimeophone via a 100 Hz high pass and a Disting X running a 4-track looper. Mimeophone and Disting X then also go into the cockpit, while Mimeophone is also feeding another loop track in the Disting X. And at the end, voice 0 then also goes into the cockpit and can also be used for compression of everything, and then goes to the audience via a 30 Hz high pass. The accomplishments were really that I learned to play with a lot of things. I now have a very good understanding of Tom Whitwell's Turing machine algorithm, both from an information theory and a musical point of view. I learned a lot about the modules I wanted to familiarize myself with in the first place, marbles and stages, and along the way became familiar with their alternate firmwares by Ukichki and by Keyman respectively. And finally, I found an excuse to get a few modules, among them Disting X and Ornament and Crime, both of which promise to provide a lot of fun in the future. My journeys in Riemann's world also ended up in about 20 hours of recorded music, some of which I do enjoy. So there will be an album, which will probably contain the music you've been hearing in the background in full. And with that, it's time to finally disassemble Leopold and Everett. Thanks for watching, and look forward to the future, about which I have no idea at this point in time.